Hello, it is late spring and I don't know about you, but I've got lots of pots in my greenhouse waiting to go out, but it's not ready yet, it's a bit too cold, there's a risk of frost. And what happens is that the nutrition in the pots can run a bit low and your plants can start to be a bit stunted, maybe a bit yellow, and that's showing that they've basically used up all the nutrients in the compost. I'm not really one for buying a lot of garden stuff, and certainly not synthetic fertilisers. So I want to show you how to make an aerobic plant tea using things that you'll find anywhere. So first thing I'm going for is some comfrey, which is this beauty of a plant here. And you can see it's big and fat, big tough leaves. It's in the Boraginaceae family, and this is a mineral accumulator, which means it's got a massive great taproot and it brings up minerals that may have gone down into the lower horizons of the soil, brings them up to the surface through its taproots, and they accumulate in the leaves. So I'm going to chop a load of this into a bucket. The smaller you chop it, the bigger the surface area, and the quicker the microbes can do their job. Now, comfrey is famously high in potassium. It's also got all sorts of trace minerals in it, so this is a great all-rounder comfrey. I particularly want nitrogen at this time of year because I'm looking at leafy growth, and nitrogen is what, well, nitrates are what promote that. So, as well as the comfrey, I'm going to put in some nettles, and that's why I've got the gloves on. So there we are, plenty of nettles. Grab them in. Obviously ask permission if it's not your land that you're taking from, and leave plenty for the wildlife. You know, you find nettles covered in ladybirds. Right, another good thing to stick in there is dandelion leaves. And there's a couple down here. I'm sure you all know what a dandelion leaf looks like. Oh, there we are. Again, I'm just going to stick a few of those in, all adding to my brew. And the last thing I want to show you is over there. This plant here is sweet clover, and the reason I particularly want this in my brew is that clover is a nitrogen fixer. That means it enters into a symbiotic relationship with certain bacteria called rhizobium bacteria on the roots, and it accumulates nitrogen. So I'm going to chop off a load of that. I'm also going to leave quite a lot because the flowers are just fantastic for bees. You'll find sweet clover sold as a green manure if you want to get hold of it. Right, one more plant to show you. This last plant is called alfalfa, or lucerne sometimes it's called. And again, this is a nitrogen fixer. It's got the strongest roots of anything I have ever grown, so just be warned, if you plant this, it's here for a long time. But it's tremendously nutritious. It's sold as a feed for livestock. In some countries you can buy alfalfa hay or alfalfa meal, quite high in proteins. And so that's why I'm putting some of that into my brew. Right, we'll take that home and see what happens next. Okay, so we're back at the house. I've filled my bucket completely with chopped up vegetation. I added in a little bit of mint, a bit of alkanet as well, just for good measure. And I've got this little fish aquarium pump here, very small. It doesn't have the wattage on it. No, it doesn't have the wattage, but so I don't know how much wattage it uses to run. Anyway, it plugs into a normal plug socket, and on the end of it is this little bit here, which looks a bit like pumice stone, and this is the air stone. It's porous, so the air comes in through the pump and then releases little bubbles through here. So I'm going to pop this into the bottom of the bucket. Now I'm going to regret not having gloves on here because it's full of metals anyway. Oh, yikes, there we go. Okay, and now I'm going to fill it with rainwater. And the reason, wow, that's heavy. The reason we want rainwater is because tap water is chlorinated, and the reason that tap water is chlorinated is to kill off microbes. Well, what we're trying to encourage here is bacterial life, biology. So we absolutely do not want the chlorination. If your only source of water is tap water, then run it out of the tap and leave the chlorine to come out of the water for a few hours. Leave it outside in a bucket, something like that. Anyway, there mine is, and all of that greenery is completely submerged. Last thing I'm going to do is turn it on at the wall, and hopefully you'll see bubbles. Yeah, there they are. Magic. Now, over the next few days, I will just keep on popping in here, giving it a little prod, making sure everything's submerged, and slightly moving the air stone around. I don't know whether you need to or not. And the idea is that you get an aerated plant tonic. I don't know if you've ever made plant tonic before, or comfrey tea, or whatever they might want to call it, but it stinks. It stinks like the worst dog breath, or, you know, it's foul, absolutely foul smell, and that smell comes from anaerobic decay. So there's a certain type of bacteria which like conditions that have no oxygen in, and they are not the optimum bacteria for your plants. We want the aerobes, the aerobic bacteria. So by sending air, which contains about 20% oxygen, through your mixture, you are favouring the aerobic bacteria over the anaerobic. And the beauty of it is it does not smell. Well, it doesn't smell horrible. When you sniff, it smells a bit, I don't know, almost a little bit like beer. It's a great smell, fantastic smell, and it's not in any way unpleasant. So we'll let that bubble. I have been letting it bubble for between 48 hours and 4 days, depending on the colour of the liquid. And I'm thinking, you know, a nice dark brown has probably got lots of soluble compounds have come out into the liquid there. So we will come back and show you this when it's done. Okay, so after 3 days of bubbling in the bucket, this is my finished result. I've got a whole bucket full. I've just decanted a little jug full. I have sent it through almost like a giant sieve, which is just one of these mushroom crates, like this. I poured it through there, and then I actually put it again through a sieve, not a sieve, a muslin, an old muslin from when my kids were little, and that stops you getting lumps in it. And the reason you don't want lumps is because often you're going to send it through a watering can with a rose on the end, and if you've got lumpy bits in, it'll get stuck. So it's definitely worth filtering it out through one of these, or if you've got a giant colander, and if you want a secondary filter, send it through a sieve. So ended up with a great big bottle full like this, and I add, I don't know, a decent glug every time I'm doing a watering can. How much would that be? About 40 mils, I think. And it's full of nitrogen, and it's got other elements in it which I haven't got the means to do a test. But my plants are really appreciating it, especially ones that are in pots waiting to go out, but it's not quite time yet. And you know how they can begin to yellow up a bit because their compost's run out of nutrients. Well, this will get you through that last bit. Good luck.